I was 25 when everything in my life shifted because of one night, one train ride, and one woman whose presence felt like standing too close to a fire. Her name was Marissa Hale, and nothing about her fit the world I came from. It started on a Wednesday, one of those gray Los Angeles evenings when the whole city smells like hot pavement and exhaust fumes. I had stayed late at my warehouse job, loading shipping pallets until my hands felt like sandpaper. My coworkers all caught rides home, but my car had died a week earlier, so I took the metro like a broke college kid instead of someone trying to pretend he had his life together. The platform was unusually quiet. Just a few people scattered around, an old man humming to himself, two teenagers sharing earbuds, and a woman in a deep burgundy blazer I noticed immediately because she looked wildly out of place. Everyone else seemed beaten down by the day, shoulders slumped, eyes tired. She, on the other hand, stood tall, leaning against a metal pillar like she owned the space around her. I hadn't even seen her face yet, but everything about her felt collected, sharp, like she made decisions quickly and rarely questioned them afterward. When the train doors opened, she stepped inside ahead of me, and I followed, mostly because it was the same carriage I always rode in, but partly because I was curious. She sat down near the window, crossed her legs, and pulled out a tablet. I took the opposite seat, far enough to not seem creepy, but close enough to feel her presence humming in the air. Something about her felt intimidating in a way I couldn't place. After a few minutes, the train jolted, lights flickering for a moment before stabilizing again. She looked up from her screen. Our eyes met, briefly, accidentally, like she wasn't the kind of person who let strangers into her attention unless she wanted to. I looked away first. When she spoke, her voice surprised me. It was calm, low, and carried the kind of confidence that comes from knowing exactly who you are. "You look exhausted," she said. I blinked. "Oh yeah? Long shift." She studied me, not rudely, more like she was trying to figure out something important. "What do you do?" "Warehouse work. Loading shipments." "That explains the hands," she said. I didn't realize she had noticed them gripping my backpack straps. "What about you?" I asked. "Corporate litigation," she answered with a tone somewhere between pride and resignation. "Long hours. Too many egos. Not enough sleep." It was the first time I'd ever heard someone describe a six-figure job like a punishment. There was a silence, not awkward, just unfamiliar. She spoke again. "You don't seem like the type who complains much." I shrugged. "Doesn't help anything." Her mouth curved into a small, barely there smile. "True." The train screeched as it passed another stop. A few passengers got off. The night felt heavier in that way only public transit at 10 p.m. can feel. Too quiet, too reflective. Then her tablet buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her expression tightened, just slightly. An emotion flickered across her face that I couldn't identify, but it was enough to break the composed image she projected. Anger? Sadness? Annoyance? Whatever it was, she tried to mask it, but not fast enough. "You okay?" I heard myself ask. She inhaled slowly. "Divorce negotiations. My ex thinks I should pay him more than the law requires." Her tone was clipped, controlled. "It's tedious." I didn't know what to say. She looked like someone who rarely opened up to strangers, yet somehow she had said something deeply personal to me. A guy she met 10 minutes ago on a train. Before I could respond, the train jerked again, hard this time, and her tablet slipped from her hands. Instinctively, I reached forward and caught it before it hit the floor. She stared at me for a moment. Not at the tablet, at me. "That was fast," she said quietly. "Reflexes," I shrugged. She nodded, and something in her expression softened. Not flirtation, not yet, but interest. Curiosity. Like she was recalibrating her first impression of me. The train slowed again, and she checked the station name outside. "This is my stop," she said, standing. But before leaving, she turned back toward me. "You get off at Willowbrook, right?" she asked. I frowned. "Yeah, how'd you?" "I've seen you on this line before," she said. "You don't blend in as much as you think." And then she stepped out onto the platform, leaving me staring after her like an idiot, replaying her last sentence in my mind, and wondering why my pulse had suddenly kicked up. That was the night everything started, even though I didn't know her name yet, and she didn't know mine. But she noticed me, and that alone changed something. For the next 2 days, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Not obsessively, not in a creepy way, more like a song stuck in my head that wouldn't leave. A burgundy blazer, a calm voice, a quiet confidence. The way she had said, "You don't blend in as much as you think." That line bothered me, but not in a bad way. It lingered. It made me feel seen, which wasn't something I was used to. By Friday night, I'd convinced myself I wouldn't see her again. People like her don't just reappear. But life doesn't care about logic, and when I boarded the metro after another exhausting shift, there she was, sitting in the same seat she had occupied 2 nights earlier, hair tied back in a loose knot, wearing a different blazer but the same composed expression. This time, her eyes found mine immediately. "You again," she said, and for a second I wondered if she had been hoping to see me, or simply expecting it. "You're early tonight," I said. Court settled faster than expected. She paused. My client didn't lie on the stand for once. A miracle. I sat across from her. Not too close, but not as far as last time. I could tell she noticed. "You never told me your name," she said. "It's Evan." "Marissa," she replied. "Nice to officially meet you." Her voice carried that same even, controlled tone, but there was a subtle warmth under it today, like she wasn't guarding herself as tightly. The train began moving, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she asked, "Do you always work late?" "Most days. It pays better when I pick up overtime." "And you need the money?" I let out a breath, trying to save for a car, and maybe a place that doesn't have plumbing from the 60s. She nodded thoughtfully. "Practical goals. I respect that." I didn't know what to say, so I stayed quiet. Usually, silence on public transit feels suffocating, but with her, it didn't. It felt charged. Not romantic. Not yet. But full of an unspoken energy I couldn't explain. Then she shifted the conversation. "Do you like your job?" The question caught me off guard. Most people don't ask things that direct. "I don't know," I admitted. "It's work. It's not exciting. It's not terrible. It's just what I'm doing for now." Marissa hummed thoughtfully. "At your age, for now is the default." I remember that. "You're what, 34? I asked before thinking. 36, she corrected, without flinching. "But you're close." I blinked. Somehow, hearing her say her age out loud made her seem even more composed, more self-assured. She wasn't trying to be younger. She wasn't pretending. She just existed exactly as she was. "You look younger," I said. That's either a compliment or an insult, depending on the context. "A compliment." She smirked. "Then thank you." The train entered a tunnel, windows turning black. Her reflection overlapped with mine, and for a moment, it looked like we were sitting closer than we actually were. "Your ex," I said carefully. "Is the divorce messy?" Her jaw tightened slightly, barely noticeable unless you were watching her closely. "Messy enough," she said. "He wants money. I want peace. We will see who wins." There was something cold in the way she said it. Cold, but not cruel. More like she was tired of fighting. "You seem strong," I said. She gave a quiet laugh. "Strength is a nice word for too stubborn to break." Another silence fell between us. This one heavier. The train slowed for the next station. People got off, others got on. Marissa didn't look away from me. "You're different from most people on this train," she said suddenly. "You say that like it's good or bad." "Neither. Just rare." I swallowed, unsure what to do with that. Then, as the train lurched forward again, she leaned a little closer. Not enough to cross any line, but enough that I could smell her perfume. Something subtle. Clean. Not sweet. "Tell me something honest," Marissa said. "Anything." I hesitated. Why would she want something honest from a stranger? But she waited, and her gaze didn't waver. So I said the first thing that came to mind. "I think you noticed me long before I noticed you." Her lips parted slightly, surprised, but not offended. "You're observant," she said quietly. "Most people aren't." "Most people aren't you," I replied before I could stop myself. A flicker of something, interest, passed through her eyes. The train stopped again, and she stood. "This is me," she said. Then she paused, turning back to face me. "Evan, if we see each other again, it won't be by accident." And she walked out. I sat there long after the doors closed, pulse hammering, wondering what exactly I had just stepped into, and why part of me wanted it to happen again. The next week felt strangely suspended, like my life had split into two separate tracks. The ordinary grind of work, bills, and exhaustion, and the possibility of running into Marissa again. I tried to convince myself I didn't care, that she was just a random person who happened to talk to me twice. But that wasn't true, and I knew it. By Thursday evening, I'd practically memorized the time I last saw her train arrive. I told myself I wasn't waiting for her. But when the metro slowed to a stop and she wasn't there, my chest tightened in a way I didn't want to admit. I sat down anyway. The train jerked forward, and then a voice came from behind me. "So you do take this line regularly?" I turned. Marissa stood in the doorway, holding onto the pole with one hand, the faintest smile touching her lips. She wasn't wearing a blazer this time, just a simple dark sweater, fitted jeans, and glasses she hadn't worn before. They softened her a bit, made her look almost casual. "You're late," I said before thinking. She raised an eyebrow. "Were you timing me?" "No," I muttered. "Just noticed." Her smile widened a fraction. "I had a late deposition. Everyone talks too much when they're under oath." She sat across from me like it was the most natural thing in the world. But something felt different tonight. The way she crossed her legs. The way her eyes lingered on me a moment longer than before. The way she seemed calmer, yet somehow sharper. "You look tired," I said. "Long day. Exhausting." She exhaled slowly. "I've been dealing with a junior attorney who thinks being loud is the same as being competent." "And is he?" "No," she said flatly. "But I let him talk until he realizes it." I laughed. I couldn't help it. She watched me, expression unreadable at first, then warm. "I like that sound," she said. The comment hit harder than it should have. I cleared my throat to ground myself. "So, you said if we met again, it wouldn't be an accident." "And it isn't." She leaned back slightly. I shifted my schedule. My pulse tightened. "Why?" "Because you're interesting," she said simply. "And very few things in my life are." I didn't know what to say. No one like her had ever said something like that to me. The train entered a quieter part of the route. Only a handful of passengers remained. Marissa removed her glasses, folded them, and set them on her lap. "Tell me something else honest," she said. "Why do you keep asking that?" "Because honesty is rare," she said. "And I want to see if you'll actually give it to me." I hesitated. This felt like a test. A dangerous one. But she waited, patient, focused, unblinking, like she had all night. I swallowed. "Okay, something honest." She tilted her head slightly. "I think," I said slowly, "you're the most self-controlled person I've ever met. But there's something under it. Something you don't show people." Her expression didn't change. Not at first. But her eyes did. "How do you know that?" she asked quietly. "Because you look like someone who learned to shut doors before anyone has the chance to open them." The silence after those words was heavy. Not uncomfortable, just charged. "You're perceptive," she finally said. "More than you realize." "I'm not trying to analyze you," I said. "I'm just noticing." And that's exactly what makes it unusual. Her tone softened. Most people never notice anything unless it concerns them. For a moment, the train felt too small, the air too warm. Her gaze held mine with a kind of intensity that made me aware of every inch of space between us. Then she shifted the tension. "Evan," she said, "do you always read people this well?" "No, just you." This time, the reaction was immediate, a slight inhale, almost imperceptible. She broke eye contact first. The train slowed for her stop. She stood, adjusted her sweater, and picked up her bag. Before stepping out, she turned back to me. "I want to ask you something," she said. My chest tightened. "Okay. Would you ever get off at a different station, just to walk with someone a little longer?" I blinked. "Are you asking me?" "I'm offering you the choice." Her expression didn't give away anything, but her voice held something new, something unguarded. The door slid open. She waited. I didn't stand. I couldn't move. Not because I didn't want to, but because the moment felt too big, too sudden, too much like crossing a line I wasn't prepared for. She noticed. A faint sadness flickered in her eyes, so faint I almost missed it. Then, "Good night, Evan," she said softly. And just like that, she stepped out onto the platform and disappeared into the night. I exhaled only after the train started moving again. I had made a choice, but I already knew I wouldn't make the same one twice. The next day at work, my mind wasn't on the pallets or the forklifts or the constant humming of the conveyor belts. It was on Marissa, on the moment I didn't stand up, on the flash of disappointment in her eyes, on the offer she made, the one I froze in front of like a kid, not a grown man. I hated that feeling. All shift, I kept replaying it. I should have gotten off the train. I should have walked with her. I should have shown her that I wasn't scared. But I'd hesitated, and she wasn't the type of woman who waited around for someone to catch up. By the time I clocked out, exhaustion had wrapped around me like a weight. But underneath it was something sharper, determination. If I saw her again, I wasn't going to freeze. I wasn't going to keep letting her be the one in control of every moment. The platform was busy when I arrived. Teenagers, commuters, night shift workers, people talking loudly on phones. I scanned the crowd, trying not to look like I was scanning. But she wasn't there. The train pulled in, and the doors opened with a metallic groan. I stepped inside, trying to keep my expectations low, and then I saw her. Marissa sat 2 rows down, legs crossed, wearing a black turtleneck and her hair loose around her shoulders. It was the first time I'd seen her with her hair down, and it shifted something inside me. She looked softer, younger, but still unmistakably herself. When she lifted her head and saw me, her expression didn't change immediately. No smile, no surprise, just observation. Then, one corner of her mouth lifted by a millimeter. "Evening," she said when I approached. "Hey." I sat across from her again, and she studied me for a long moment. "You hesitated yesterday," Marissa said. "But you came back today. That tells me something." "What does it tell you?" "That you're thoughtful, careful." A pause. "And that you regret not standing." I did. But hearing her say it so directly made something tighten in my chest. "I didn't expect the question," I said. "It caught me off guard." "That's fair." She leaned back. "I'm not used to people hesitating around me." "Well, I'm not most people." "No," she said quietly. "You're not." The train moved, and for a while neither of us spoke. The noise of the carriage filled the space between us, the hum of metal on tracks, the faint echo of someone's music playing too loudly, the shifting of passengers changing seats. Then Marissa broke the silence. "I had a strange day today." "Strange how?" "I got assigned a case I didn't want. A custody dispute. Ugly. Painful. And it reminded me why I never wanted children." That caught me off guard. Never. Never. No hesitation. No regret, either. I like my freedom. I like choosing where I put my time. I nodded slowly. "I get that." She tilted her head. "What about you?" "I don't know," I said. "Maybe someday. But not now. My life's nowhere near stable enough." "Good answer," she said. "Honest." The train lights flickered as we passed through an older tunnel. Marissa's eyes stayed on me. Not in a predatory way, not in a romantic way, something in between. Evaluating. Learning. Deciding. Then she asked, "Why did you come back tonight?" I swallowed. "Because I didn't like how I left things." She didn't speak. Didn't move. Just watched me with those sharp, dark eyes. "And because," I continued, "I want to get off with you tonight. If you still want that." Her gaze softened. Not dramatically, but enough for me to notice. "I do," she said. The words settled into me like heat. We rode in silence for the rest of the route. Not awkward. Not distant. More like a mutual awareness building with each passing second. When the train finally slowed and the station sign for her stop came into view, she stood and looked directly at me. "This time," she said, "stand." I did. I stood so quickly it almost made her laugh, but instead she simply nodded, like she had expected nothing less. We stepped off the train together. The platform was empty, cold, quiet. The air smelled faintly of rain. Marissa turned to me. "Walk with me," she said. No hesitation. No question. Just an invitation. And this time, I followed. We walked down the platform in silence at first, both of us adjusting to this new, whatever it was. The quiet didn't feel heavy. It felt intentional, like neither of us wanted to dilute the moment with small talk. The echo of our footsteps on the concrete filled the space between us. At the exit turnstiles, Marissa paused and glanced over her shoulder to make sure I was still beside her. "Good," she murmured, almost to herself. Outside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of wet pavement. Her neighborhood wasn't the typical suburban calm I expected from someone her age. It was a mix of renovated brownstones and older apartment buildings with crooked fire escapes. Nice, but not pretentious. "You live around here?" I asked. She smirked. Observant. You didn't deny it. I didn't need to. We crossed an intersection, and she slowed her pace slightly. Not enough to make it obvious, but enough that I matched her stride without noticing. She was wearing black boots that clicked rhythmically on the sidewalk. Her coat was long, dark gray, tailored. Everything about her presence felt deliberate, like she lived life on her own terms, at her own tempo. "So," she said after a minute, Tell me something real. Like what? Anything. Something you wouldn't normally tell someone you met on a train. I thought for a moment. My family thinks I'm wasting my 20s, I admitted. They don't say it directly, but you know? I do, she said quietly. What do you think? I think I'm figuring things out. But slower than most. Slower than who? Your siblings? Your friends? Everyone feels ahead of me. Careers. Relationships. Plans. Marissa let out a soft exhale, not quite a sigh. There is no universal clock, she said. People pretend there is because it makes them feel better. But timing is personal. Easy to say, I muttered. It is, she agreed. But still true. We reached a corner illuminated by a street lamp. The light cast a warm glow over her face, softening the sharp edges. For a moment she looked tired, not in a defeated way, but in the way someone looks after holding themselves together for too long. My turn, she said. Something real. I waited. I used to work 80-hour weeks, she said. Constantly proving myself, constantly pushing, constantly in motion. I thought if I stopped, everything would fall apart. And did it? She shook her head. No, I fell apart. The work didn't. We walked another half block in silence. That why you get off early on Thursdays? I asked. That's why I give myself Thursdays, she corrected. To remember that I'm more than my work. It made sense now. The way she sat on the train, the way she looked out the window, the way she seemed to operate on a different wavelength than everyone else. You seem like someone who doesn't let people in easily, I said. She gave a small smile. And yet here you are. Here I am. Another block, another stretch of quiet. We reached her building, a tall, narrow brownstone with ivy creeping up the side. She pulled out her keys but didn't unlock the door right away. Instead, Marissa turned to me. Her expression was impossibly calm, but her eyes were warm, warmer than I'd seen them before. I didn't invite you to walk with me as some kind of test, she said. I invited you because I was curious. Curious about what? Whether you'd still be here when we reached the door. Well, I said, I'm here. Yes, she murmured. You are. She looked at me for a long moment, studying me the way someone examines a painting up close, trying to understand the layers beneath it. Then she stepped closer, not touching me, not crowding me, but close enough that I felt the shift in the air. This isn't a seduction, she said. Not tonight. I didn't think it was. Good, she said softly. Because I don't want this, whatever it is, to be rushed or confused. That makes two of us. For the first time since I met her, Marissa looked slightly unsure, not vulnerable, exactly, but uncertain in a human way. It made her feel closer, more reachable. She unlocked the door. I'm not inviting you inside, she said. Not yet. I didn't expect you to. But, she hesitated. Walk me home again next Thursday. I will. She nodded once, satisfied. Good night, then. Good night. She stepped inside, and the door closed with a soft click. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the space she had occupied seconds ago, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time, anticipation that didn't scare me. A week suddenly felt very far away. I didn't sleep the night after our beach conversation, not because anything bad happened, but because everything felt too perfect, too intense, too good to be real. And that terrified me more than any argument ever could. I kept replaying the moment she kissed me first. The laugh she let out when I told her she looked like trouble. The way she pressed her forehead to mine at the bonfire like she was afraid I might disappear. By the time sunrise crept through my blinds, I'd made up my mind. I was falling for her. And fast. When Madison texted me around 9 a.m., coffee, my place. I swear my heart beat so hard it shook the bed. I showered, shaved, changed twice, then told myself to chill out. She wasn't a girlfriend. We weren't official. I didn't even know if she wanted that. But when she opened her apartment door in an oversized sweater and messy hair, I was done for. Hey, she said softly, like she'd been waiting by the door. Hi. I answered, trying not to stare too obviously at the fact she wasn't wearing pants. Just long socks and confidence. She handed me a mug before I even stepped inside. Thought you might need this. You look like someone who didn't sleep. I froze. Wait, how did you? Because I didn't either, she said with a tiny, dangerous smile. And that one sentence made me forget how to breathe. We settled onto her couch. She tucked her feet under her. I sat stiff like a high school kid on his first date. You're thinking too much, she said. Am I? I asked. You always do. It's cute, until it's self-destructive. I let out a slow breath. I just don't want to mess this up. She leaned back, studying me. Really studying me. What makes you think you will? Because this feels big. Like, too big. And I don't know what you want or expect or... Stop. She placed her hand on my knee, firm but gentle. I don't want you pretending you know what I expect. I don't even fully know what I expect. I just know I like what's happening, and I want to see where it goes. I swallowed. So no rules, no labels, no pressure, she corrected. If something becomes a label later, it becomes one naturally. It should have reassured me. But something about her voice made me wonder if she was protecting herself too. Before I could ask, she shifted closer and rested her head on my shoulder. You can relax around me, Noah. I don't bite unless asked. Yeah, relaxing was officially impossible. We spent the next few hours talking about nonsense and everything at once. Music, travel, regrets, first heartbreaks. She told me about a guy she almost married at 29 and how it ended because we loved the idea of each other, not the reality. I told her things I hadn't told anyone. Stuff from childhood. Stuff about who I wanted to be. She listened with her whole body. Eyes on me, brows lifting, nods that weren't pitying but understanding. Then her phone buzzed. She groaned. Work emergency. I have to go in for a few hours. I tried not to look disappointed, but apparently I failed. She cupped my face with one hand, smiling. Come back tonight. I'll cook, or at least attempt to. Deal. She kissed me, slow, lingering, warm, and headed to her room to change. I watched her walk away, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hope instead of fear. Around 7 p.m., I went back to her place with a bottle of wine I couldn't really afford but knew she'd like. The second I stepped inside, I froze. Her dining table was set. Candles. Music low. Not romantic, but effort. A lot of it. She walked out of the kitchen with her hair braided and an apron dusted with flour. Before you say anything, she said, pointing a spoon at me. If dinner tastes weird, I want credit for trying. Trying looks incredible, I said. She smirked. Finish that line, and I'm canceling tonight. So I shut up. Mostly. Dinner was shockingly good. Creamy pasta with garlic and lemon, but she was better. Every time she laughed, she'd touch my hand without even realizing it. Every time I spoke, she'd lean in like the words mattered. I'd never felt chosen like this. Fully chosen. After dessert, store-bought, which she proudly admitted, she pulled me toward the couch. Okay, she said, tucking her legs under her again. Now that we've eaten like adults, let's talk like ones. My heart jumped. About us. About boundaries, she corrected gently. Not because something is wrong. Because I want to do this right. She took a breath. So tell me, what scares you most about whatever this is? I hesitated, then told her the truth. You. Losing you before I even get to have you. Her eyes softened. Then let's make sure that won't happen. And she took my hand, threading her fingers through mine like a promise. Not dramatic, not rushed, but something real. Something that was growing, slowly and dangerously beautifully. I didn't realize how quickly someone could become a part of your daily rhythm until Madison did. The next week was different, in the best and scariest ways. We didn't define anything, just like she wanted, but we naturally slipped into a pattern. Morning texts, late-night calls, inside jokes, quick coffees between our schedules, and slow evenings where we'd end up on her couch, doing absolutely nothing, and yet everything at the same time. And then came the moment that shifted everything. The moment that made me understand just how deep I was falling. It was Thursday night. I'd had a brutal day at work. 2 clients bailed, my boss threw a last-minute project at me, and I was running on 5 hours of sleep and pure spite. Madison texted me. Rough day. I replied. Yeah, going home. I didn't expect anything else. She had a big conference the next morning. But 15 minutes later, as I was unlocking my apartment door, she called. Don't go inside. What? Come outside. Now. I turned around, confused, and then I saw her car pulling into the parking lot. She stepped out wearing jeans, a loose gray hoodie, hair in a bun like she'd rushed out without overthinking it. She looked comfortable, warm, familiar, beautiful in a way that hit bone deep. What are you doing here? I asked. You sounded like you needed me. Her voice was gentle, matter of fact, like it wasn't a big deal. It was a big deal. No one had ever done that for me. Get in, she said. I'm kidnapping you. I opened the door and laughed for the first time all day. Where are we going? I asked once I sat down. We're escaping your stress. It's illegal to suffer after 9 p.m. New law. I shook my head. Is that so? She started driving. It is now? We drove with no destination for a while. City lights glowing through the windshield. Soft music humming from the speakers. Madison didn't push me to talk. She didn't try to fix my problems. She just let me breathe. At some point, she reached over and took my hand. Not dramatically, not possessively, just slid her fingers between mine like she'd done it 1,000 times. My whole body relaxed. Eventually, she pulled into a small overlook on the edge of the city, a place I'd never been. The skyline stretched out below us, glowing, alive. Come on, she said, opening her door. We stood outside in the cool air. She leaned against the hood of her car, arms folded, looking out at the city like she owned it. Better? She asked. Yeah, I said honestly. A lot. She nudged me with her shoulder. Good. Now talk to me. So I told her everything. About work. About stress. About feeling like I was drowning. Words I hadn't planned to say spilled out because she made it feel safe. She listened without interrupting, without judging. When I finished, she pressed her hand to my chest, right over my heartbeat. You're carrying too much alone, she whispered. You don't have to. Something in me cracked open right then. Not broken, opened. I stepped closer. She didn't back away. Her breath caught. The smallest, barely audible sound that told me she felt it too. She looked up at me, her eyes half lit by the glow of the city. You're looking at me like you're about to do something, she said quietly. Maybe I am. Her lips parted. Then do it. So I did. I kissed her gently at first, almost cautiously, but she pulled me closer by the back of my neck, deepening it, turning something soft into something warm and hungry. Not rushed, not wild, just full of all the unspoken things building between us. Her hand slid under my hoodie, mine at her waist. She tasted like mint tea and possibility. When we finally pulled apart, her forehead rested on mine. This is dangerous, she whispered. Why? Because you're getting under my skin. And you're already under mine, I admitted. That made her smile, small, shaky, beautiful. We stood there in silence for a moment, bodies close, breaths mixing with the night air. Then she exhaled. Okay, I wasn't planning to say this yet, but I want to see you Saturday. Properly. As in, no stress, no escaping, no crappy workdays. I want to take you out. You want to take me out? I teased. I'm older, she said. I get to choose the date. And what if I wanted to take you out? Her smirk turned slow and wicked. Then you can plan the next one. It didn't feel like a game. It felt like the beginning of something real. She drove me home afterward. She kissed me again at the door, slow, lingering, like she didn't want to leave. And when she finally pulled back, she whispered, Saturday, don't be late. I watched her drive away, heart pounding, knowing things were shifting from casual to something deeper, something neither of us could pretend to ignore anymore. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. I spent the whole morning pacing my apartment, cleaning things that didn't need cleaning, checking myself in the mirror like I was about to meet royalty. Madison didn't tell me where we were going, only to dress nice but not too nice, which was maddeningly vague. At 6:10 p.m., she texted, I'm outside. My stomach dropped. I walked out expecting her usual casual confidence, maybe jeans, maybe a cute top. I wasn't prepared for what I saw. She was leaning against her car, arms crossed lightly, wearing a fitted black dress that hugged every curve without looking like she was trying too hard. Her hair was loose for once, waves brushing her shoulders. Minimal makeup, but enough to make her eyes look sharp and soft at the same time. She looked incredible, stunning, dangerous. When she saw me freeze, she smirked. Good. You're speechless. That's the reaction I was going for. I swallowed. You look wow. You clean up pretty well yourself. She tugged playfully at the collar of my shirt. Very date-appropriate. So this is a date. I teased. She stepped closer, not close enough to touch, but close enough that I could smell her perfume, warm and subtle. Tonight it is. She drove us downtown. I kept trying to guess where we were going, but she refused to give hints. Instead, she played her usual mix of indie, old-school R&B, and whatever moody playlist she'd made that week. We ended up at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the water, dim lights, soft jazz, a view that felt like it belonged in another city. Madison, I whispered, stunned. This place is expensive. I know, she said simply. You didn't have to. I wanted to. She shrugged. This isn't about money. It's about the fact that I wanted to give you a night you'll remember. You already have, I said without thinking. The look she gave me then, part warmth, part longing, part hesitation, made my pulse skip. Come on, she said softly. Let's go inside. Dinner felt unreal. We talked about everything, travel dreams, embarrassing childhood stories, our worst dates, our best mistakes. She told me about a time she almost moved to Seattle on a whim. I admitted I sometimes felt lost, like I was overdue for a version of myself I hadn't grown into yet. She didn't laugh. She let me speak. She listened like the words mattered. Halfway through dessert, she rested her chin on her hand, studying me. What? I asked, suddenly self-conscious. You're different, she said. From who? From the men I've dated. Her voice lowered. In a good way. I tried to joke it off. Because I'm younger? No, she said immediately. Because you're not jaded. Because you still look at things like they can become something, instead of assuming they'll fall apart. That hit deeper than she probably realized. And you? I asked. How do you look at things? She leaned back, eyes drifting toward the city lights. I've lived long enough to know that good things are rare, and fragile, and sometimes terrifying. When she looked at me again, there was something raw in her expression. That's why I'm being careful, she admitted. Careful with what? With you. My breath caught. Before I could respond, the waiter came by with the check. She reached for it immediately. No way, I said. Let me. No. She interrupted, firm but not unkind. I invited you. I'm paying. I opened my mouth to protest again, but she gave me a look that said, choose your battles, Noah. So I let her win this one. We drove to the waterfront after. The night was warm, the air carrying the smell of salt and distant food trucks. Madison slipped her hand into mine as we walked, effortlessly, like it belonged there. We sat on the pier, legs dangling above the dark water. Small waves hit the wooden posts below, steady and rhythmic. This is the best night I've had in a long time, I said. Me too. She shifted closer. Her shoulder brushed mine. I could feel her breathing. Then she whispered, Noah, can I ask you something? Anything. What do you actually want from this? From us? There it was. The question she'd been avoiding. The one I'd been afraid to answer. I turned to her. She didn't look scared. She looked braced, like she was ready for the truth even if it hurt. I took a slow breath. I want you, I said. Not casually. Not temporarily. Not halfway. Her eyes widened just a little. I know we said no labels, I continued. But the more time I spend with you, the more I want something real. Something that feels like this. Something that keeps growing. She didn't speak. Not right away. Her hand squeezed mine, slow, deliberate, trembling slightly. Noah, she whispered, I wasn't expecting you to say that. Is that bad? No, she said after a beat. It's just honest. And honesty is scary. The wind lifted her hair as she turned toward me fully. Then she said the words that would change everything. I want you to. More than I planned to. The confession settled between us. Warm, dangerous, electric. She leaned in slowly, giving me time to close the distance. And when our lips met, nothing felt uncertain anymore. It felt real. Finally real. The next morning felt unreal, not because of anything physical that happened, but because of how easy everything felt when I woke up. Madison stayed over. Not planned. Not rushed. Not messy or chaotic like a movie scene. Just natural. We'd fallen asleep on my couch around 2 a.m., her head on my chest, the city noise drifting through the cracked window. When sunlight finally reached the room, she was still there, still holding on to me like I was something worth keeping. When her eyes opened, she blinked slowly, confused at first, then smiled. Morning, she whispered. I'd never felt so wanted from one word in my life. She stretched, hair messy, voice rough from sleep. Why is your couch more comfortable than my bed? It's not, I said. You were just tired. She sat up, pulling her legs under her. I was tired because you kept kissing me. That's not what happened. She raised an eyebrow. Are you calling me a liar? Maybe. She shoved my shoulder and laughed. And God, it was the kind of laugh people fall in love with. Warm, unfiltered, real. But the moment didn't last. Her phone buzzed from the coffee table. She glanced at it. Her smile faded. The screen lit up with a name I didn't know, Ethan. She didn't pick up. She didn't even reach for it. She just stared for a second too long. Everything okay? I asked carefully. Yeah, she said, a little too fast. Just work. But her shoulders had tensed. Her voice softened. Something in the air shifted. And I felt it. She stood, smoothing her sweater like she suddenly needed something to do with her hands. I should head home, she said. I have a meeting. It was Saturday. You have a meeting? I repeated gently. She closed her eyes for half a second. No, I just need to go. A knot tightened in my stomach. Madison, I said quietly. If something's wrong, tell me. I don't want to ruin the morning, she whispered. Then don't. Just be honest with me. She finally picked up the phone and turned the screen toward herself. Not me. But I saw just enough. 6 missed calls. All from that same name. She saw me noticing and immediately locked the screen. And I realized she wasn't afraid of the call. She was afraid of what I would think of it. Is that your ex? I asked, steady but not accusing. She hesitated. Yes, but not the way you think. I waited. She sat back down, elbows on her knees, face in her hands for a moment before she spoke. We dated for 2 years, she said slowly. It ended 8 months ago, but he doesn't really stay gone. He doesn't want me back. He just wants to keep me close enough to not move on. It's complicated. Does he know about me? No. She looked at me then, eyes tired. Because I didn't want him to ruin something good. That hit harder than it should have. He's not dangerous, she added quickly. Just a habit I should have broken sooner. Does he still think there's a chance? I asked. No, she said. Then after a pause. Maybe. I don't know. He calls when he's lonely or bored or confused. And I answer. Or I used to. It was a pattern. A bad one. And now. She looked right at me. I didn't answer today. A breath I didn't know I was holding finally released. But the knot didn't vanish. Not fully. Because I needed to know one more thing. Are you done with him? I asked quietly. She didn't answer immediately. She lifted her eyes toward mine, expression raw and honest. I was done, she said. Emotionally, physically, romantically, all of it. But habits take time to die. He was familiar, safe in the wrong way. She reached for my hand. You're the first person I've felt something real for since him. And that scares me, because it means I can't hide behind old patterns anymore. Silence hung between us, heavy but real. I squeezed her hand. If you're choosing me, choose me fully. Not halfway. Not while someone else is calling you 6 times in the morning. Madison swallowed. I know. And I won't ask you to block him or erase him from your history. But I need clarity. I need to know you're actually moving forward, not looking back. Then, slow, steady, she nodded. You're right. I should have done this months ago. She stood, walked to the counter, picked up her phone, and blocked the number. No theatrics. No hesitation. Just a quiet end to something that had held her back. She turned back to me with a mix of relief and fear. There, she whispered. No more patterns. I stepped closer, brushed her cheek with my thumb. I'm not him, I said softly. I know, she breathed. That's the whole point. She kissed me then, deep, slow, with something new behind it. Something like commitment. Something like a promise she wasn't ready to say out loud yet. And for the first time since meeting her, I believed we actually had a real chance. For the first time since meeting her, things finally felt clear. Not perfect, not simple, but real. And real was enough for me. After Madison blocked her ex's number, something shifted between us, quietly, but unmistakably. The tension she'd been carrying in her shoulders for weeks seemed to ease. She wasn't glancing at her phone anymore. She wasn't distracted. She wasn't pulling away and returning moments later like she had something to untangle inside herself. Instead, she stayed. Really stayed. That entire weekend felt like a turning point. Not because of grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but because the small things, the tiny choices, kept confirming what her actions meant. She chose me, and I was terrified of messing that up. Sunday afternoon, we walked down to the little park near my building. Nothing fancy, kids running around, people walking dogs, and couples drinking iced coffees and pretending they weren't freezing in the November breeze. Madison wrapped her scarf tighter and slipped her arm through mine. You look deep in thought, she said. I'm thinking, I replied. That's dangerous. I smirked. Can't help it. Thinking about what? I hesitated, but she nudged me. Hey, Honest, remember? Okay, I said quietly. I'm thinking about us. She nodded, not scared this time. Good. Me too. We sat on a bench. She leaned her head on my shoulder, letting the silence settle naturally. After a moment, she said, You know, I didn't think I'd be doing this again. What? Dating? No. She laughed softly. Feeling. I turned my head slightly. Feeling what? She took a slow breath, her voice quieter when she answered. Hopeful. That word did something to my chest. I'm glad, I said, because I've been hoping too. She shifted, looking up at me now, eyes warmer than the sun breaking through the clouds. Can I tell you something? She asked. Always. I used to think that dating someone younger would feel like babysitting. She grinned playfully. But you're nothing like what I expected. You say that like it's a compliment. It is, she said. You challenge me. You surprise me. You make me feel alive. That was the moment I realized I loved her. Maybe not the cinematic kind of love yet. Not the forever, dramatic, all-consuming type. But the steady kind, the kind that grows because it finally has room to. But I didn't say it. Not yet. Not when things were still fragile in a beautiful way. Instead, I took her hand. I want to try, I said. She squeezed my fingers. Me too. So what does that make us? I asked. She hummed thoughtfully. Well, considering we kissed on a pier, slept on your couch, I blocked my ex for you, and you're holding my hand like you're never letting go. I'd say we're something. Something, I repeated. Very descriptive. She laughed. Fine. We're dating. I raised an eyebrow. As in officially dating? As in, she said slowly, I don't want anyone else. And I don't want you with anyone else either. A warmth spread through me that I couldn't hide even if I wanted to. Sounds official to me, I said. She kissed me, soft, quick, but full of certainty. The next weeks moved like a dream. Not perfect, a few work arguments, a couple misunderstandings, schedules that didn't always line up, but ours. Real, steady, promising. We found a balance, her experience grounding me, my energy softening her edges. We challenged each other, comforted each other, grew together without forcing it. She taught me patience. I taught her trust. She showed me what confidence looked like when rooted in self-awareness. I showed her what vulnerability felt like without fear. The age gap stopped mattering. What mattered was the way we fit. And one night, lying in her bed while the city lights glowed through the sheer curtains, she whispered, You know, you might be the best thing that's happened to me in a long time. I wrapped my arm around her waist. I feel the same. She rested her hand on my chest, her fingers tracing small circles. You think we can make this work? She asked softly. I lifted her chin so she'd meet my eyes. We already are. She smiled. One of those slow, genuine smiles that came from a place deeper than comfort. And then she whispered something she'd never said before. I'm falling for you, Noah. My breath caught. I kissed her forehead gently. I'm falling too, I whispered back. Not rushed. Not chaotic. Not dramatic. Just honest. Just real. Just us. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of what came next. I was ready for it.